ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning once again. I am pleased that you're here, and I'm pleased in your interest. I would also like to welcome those who are joining us via the internet. 2018 was a very strenuous year overall, but nevertheless, it was also a successful year. To put it more precisely, it was another year of records. It's the 15th consecutive year of records, a record year. In terms of our operations, we've expanded our medical offerings. We are looking after even more patients now than before, and we are providing them with even better medicine from our point of view. And as a consequence of this, we have also been able to increase both our revenues and our EBIT. And again, we set new record numbers. The legal dispute with Acorn, which did have an impact on our inaction for most of last year, is something that we would have liked to have avoided. But at the end of the day, there was no other way to go for us than to stick to our principles and to also be able to enforce the right that we had and we have successfully concluded this chapter. And from Reese Powell, you've just heard that the very important strategic acquisition of Next Stage by Fresenius Medical Care will be closing in the next couple of days. And another highlight that we saw in 2018 was the continued development of our biosimilars portfolio. And again, we're expecting in the course of 2019 that we will be able to have our first biosimilar launch. 2018, as already said, did not turn out the way it originally planned for the year to develop. Nevertheless, we twice had to issue profit warnings and adjust our outlook. We are nevertheless sticking to the path that we have decided to take, and we're doing this very decisively, and also in preparation for the clearly emerging trends. We are making investments in order to be even better prepared and in order to cope with the challenges that we currently see, and thus hope that we will be able to turn these challenges into opportunities, and that will mean that we need to be even better prepared to take advantage of any opportunities as they might arise in 2019, and that's why we've given it the headline of a year of investments. We are planning, ongoing growth in sales and earnings and this is again going to be reflected in our midterm targets that we will be announcing today. So let us briefly take a look at the figures for 2018 on the group level. Constant currency increase in growth of 6% for revenues, and EBIT is approximately the same level as it was last year, because we've had some considerable expenses for the biosimilars business, and that which played a big role last year. And why am I saying a new year of records? Because the net income at constant currency grew by 7%. We've never been quite as successful as we were in 2018. I've already mentioned this. We've already had that this is going to be our 15th consecutive improvement in net income. That's a continuation of a very long series. So compounded annual growth rate is 11%, which was surely also due to some of our acquisitions throughout these years, which and our very successful net income has even increased on a compounded annual growth rate of 20%. And I'm firmly convinced that this success model will continue to prove successful in the future. If the company is successful, then we also want to allow our shareholders to participate in this growth and in the improved situation, and that's why we are planning to propose our 26th consecutive dividend increase. And if you will recall our dividend policy that we will allow to increase our dividend by the increase in our results, and that's why the proposed increase to 80 euro cents per shares corresponds to a growth of 7%, corresponding to the growth in net income that I just referred to. We'll come back to the outlook for 2019 in a minute or two, and you will see that we are not providing for any growth in earnings for 2019. Nevertheless, as we announced in December, that we do plan to continue the increase in our dividends. We definitely don't want to interrupt this long consecutive series. And the number of our employees worldwide has also significantly increased. In the meantime, at Fresenius, we are now employing more than 276,750 employees. That is a huge number of employees. I'm very proud of all of our colleagues and what they achieved last year. And as you have already seen throughout the course of this year, they've made some very important contributions. And again, at this point, I would also like to express my explicit thanks to our global workforce. Without the hard work of my colleagues, everything that we achieved last year would not have been possible. And again, we would not be able to achieve the targets that we have set for ourselves in the future without our employees. As I've already mentioned, our legal dispute with Acorn has been successfully concluded. This is the chapter that we would have liked to have skipped on. It's been successfully completed. The industrial logic that led us to try to attempt to take over Acorn had changed over the course of a year. This strategy is going to continue. We would like to expand our offerings, particularly with regard to liquid products, and particular our foothold in the United States. So against this background, Acorn appeared to be a very good target for an acquisition on our part. Everything that we were allowed to check was diligently checked. We did everything in accordance with the state-of-the-art rules, and this was definitely confirmed to us by the American court. Everything that we were able to do before the signature, but everything that we were not allowed to check before our final signatures on the documents was unable to be checked, and that's where we ran into problems, unfortunately. And again, we have the ultimate proof of this from a very high court in the United States. So my conclusion is that our acquisitions process does not need to be changed at all. Our risk management works well. I wasn't particularly pleased by becoming involved in having this confirmed through this lengthy court trial. But this is also a valuable piece of information, because that means that we can continue to pursue acquisitions, and we will be able to rely on our risk management system and be even more diligent, to the extent that we're allowed to be so diligent. So, share price. Well, you have a very similar picture. You saw a very similar picture from my friend and colleague Reese Powell a few moments ago. And even if it would seem to be more of a static lateral movement for most of the year, but nevertheless, the share price did suffer at the beginning of the fourth quarter and made a significant drop as a consequence of the fact that within a very short period of time, we twice had to adjust our outlook with regard to our revenues and our earnings. I personally regret this very much. Within a very short period of time, the trust that we had built up over many, many years suddenly was lost in many areas. And I would like to say that a trust is formed on the basis of promises that have been kept over a long period of time. And this is what we would like to continue to do in the future. And we'd like to establish this trust. You've already heard from Mr. Powell that Fresenius Medical Care Management Board members have declared to invest a considerable amount of their variable remuneration into a significant number of chairs. And some of you will have already seen that I personally also did the same in the year 2017 on a much higher share price level than we have today. Nevertheless, I have also asked the supervisory board to do the same for 2018. That is, I plan on investing all of my variable pay into Fresenius shares, and also to comply with the 3-year vesting period, which means that it will take that long until I'm able to dispose of the money. I feel perfectly comfortable with this measure because I firmly believe in the company and in our lasting economic success. The negative headlines, particularly during the fourth quarter of last year, but also everything related to Acorn, kind of covered up how successful we were in 2018 in many ways. As I briefly mentioned this in the beginning, we were successful in all business segments. We achieved major milestones, and allow me now to briefly talk about a few of these highlights. Reese Powell talked about Fresenius Medical Care, and in particular he talked about China and next stage, and that is why I would like to turn directly to Fresenius Kabi. We launched a large number of new and important products, and as a result, we were able to help the patients, but also those caring for our patients. In doing so, we've been able to cover the whole range of products, both the liquid products and clinical nutrition, and also parts of our medical devices as well. We are continuing to see a huge demand for our products, which began in 2018, and this demand will continue in 2019. And thus, we have also undertaken a number of measures to expand and modernize our facilities. The photo that you see on the bottom right-hand side is for our new plant in Haine in the Dominican Republic, and you can see Mats Henriksen is in the middle there, and we have engaged in a substantial expansion of this facility and production there. But that is only one example out of many. I could refer to what's happening in China, Great Britain, the Netherlands, everywhere, and in some countries where we're doing even more, where we're investing in expanding our capacities due to an increased demand for our products, and where we've also engaged in qualitative upgrades in ensuring our delivery processes, and thus to ensure that we can then continue to increase the quality of our products as well. Thus, we are also securing long-term growth of Fresenius Kabi, but at the same time, we're also doing justice to our responsibility, because we know that in many cases, we are one of the few suppliers of vital medical products. And you know that in highly developed industrial nations, such as the United States, there always are going to be a phenomenon concerning shortages of certain medical products and so on, and where we've tried to deal with these situations. We are willing to deal with these challenges and our responsibility by expanding our international network of production facilities and making that available, so that if there is a need to deliver products from the European facilities or from other plants, that we can be sent to wherever there might be needed, in particular to the United States in the past. And that is why the FDA also gave us an award for our important contribution, as you can see here on the slide, namely the Drug Shortage Assistance Award from the FDA. With regard to the idea of shortages, we also played a role in 2018. This had to do with the fact that some of our competitors have started to show some reactions. Whether this will last or not, you're familiar with this subject. We've also talked about this once before. It's very difficult to anticipate what's going to happen. In my eyes, it is perfectly natural. The longer there's a shortage, the greater the possibility that the shortage will end. Throughout this ongoing year, we once again have seen steps towards a normalization of the market situation in the United States. And nevertheless, we'll have to wait and see whether we were too conservative, or because we have no way of controlling what our competitors are doing. We have to focus on our own talents and skills with regard to our investments in order to ensure that we are the leader with regard to the quality of our products in this market. We are satisfied, or very satisfied, with the development of the biosimilars business, which we took over from Merck KGaA. When I take a look at all of the underlying conditions for this rather new branch of products, then an awful lot has happened, and everything seems to be moving in the right direction. The approvals that we have seen in the United States have definitely picked up speed, and recently I heard an interesting statement from the American Secretary of Health, where he said, those who are against biosimilars on the wrong side of history. In other words, there is a clear acknowledgement on the part of the American administration to ensure a broader expanse of brighter biosimilars. So I believe that with our attempts to launch new products, once again shows that we have taken a very important step at the right time, and it's the right step. As I said, the first product launch is expected to take place in 2019, and this will be the biosimilar for the product called Humira, which we are going to be launching as Idacio in Europe. With regard to the market launch in the United States, as you've already seen, we entered into an agreement with AbbVie, the patent owner, which thus allows us to engage in a market launch in the United States as of at somewhere in the range of between 2020 or 2023, to put it more precisely. This is another example of the kinds of investments that we are currently engaged in, which will have a short-term burden, or be a short-term burden on our figures, but in the long run, we are firmly convinced that they will definitely generate considerable earnings and considerable growth for us over the next decade. Biosimilars will be the next type of generic products that Fresenius Kabi will continue, that Kabi has benefited from, not only right now, but also in the recent past. Let's now talk about our hospital business. You know that at Fresenius we have two parts, Helios Germany and Helios Spain. where we had this acquisition of Quirónsalud not too long ago. And so the picture for the hospital business tends to be a bit mixed. The international business seems to be running excellently, and we are very satisfied with our acquisition in Spain. Our colleagues there are making definite progress, and as you've also seen last year, they have also moved outside of the Spanish borders and engaged in an acquisition of a hospital in Medellin, Colombia. And I'm assuming that over the course of time, we will perhaps engage in further small to mid-sized steps in Latin America. That is a very interesting region. We are going to be concentrating on countries in this region which have an above-average political stability. All of them clearly have a need to catch up when it comes to be talking about hospital capacities for their population. We consider this to be a very exciting topic, and we know from our initial examples that our knowledge there is being very well received, and that there are going to be strong ties between Latin America, Spain, and Europe. In Spain itself, the situation is similar. We do not have enough hospital capacities for the size of the population of Spain, and this is expressed in very long waiting periods, which are not what we want. And that is why it is possible to open up new hospitals in Spain, contrary to here in Germany. And we did so in Cordoba, and thus we now have more than six hospitals in Andalusia. That's the positive side of the picture. I told you it was a mixed picture. Then unfortunately I also have to admit that here in Germany last year, not everything was quite as rosy as we had planned. For the first time in many years, we had a declining number of patient admissions in Germany. This was due in particular to the fact that in some of our hospitals, patients who would have liked to have been treated by us were not allowed to be treated there. We had a couple of neuralgic points due to some shortages of staff. This is also related to the fact that we are taking a path of specializing in certain complex illnesses in the interests of our patients, in the interests of good medical quality, and that we're going to have to continue to work on this. And to make our patients, their family members, and their physicians understand this position. That's definitely of a medical benefit to go to a specialized hospital and accept any drawbacks due to having to travel further to these hospitals. As far as the third quarter is concerned, we clearly diagnosed what went wrong in the third quarter, and we have taken a whole series of countermeasures, and here we are trying to become even better and even more effective in our communications, and in particular to encourage our physicians to do more to refer patients to specialized hospitals and clinics, and that means accepting certain disadvantages, but we have to counteract this. We've learned in Spain that there is a lasting trend to outpatient care, ambulatory care, and that a larger number of indications can and should be treated on an outpatient basis, and we are reacting to this with medical care centers, or we're working together with a number of networks of physicians, and we have launched a number of these initiatives in order to tie these medical care centers with our hospitals. The initial results were shown in the fourth quarter, where the situation at least has stabilized. With regard to the subject of nursing care, I am allowed to report to you that with regard to the minimum staffing ratios that will go into effect as of the beginning of the year, contrary to many prejudices that were held. We're not having any problems in meeting these staffing ratios. There might be the one or the other hospital that might not be able to reach this ratio yet, but these are definitely individual cases that are not significant in terms of their numbers. We're continuing to build up our nursing staff, and contrary to to nationwide prejudices, we do not have any lack of applications. On the contrary, we have focused on streamlining our applications processes to make it leaner, in order to turn the number of applications into an additional number of candidates who will then be able to join us. And in the midterm, we plan on expanding our training capacities. We've already have certain schools, and we're going to continue to expand our training facilities in other European countries, and all of this in cooperation with Helios sister companies. So overall, the German hospital market continues to be highly attractive to us from our point of view. We are seeing lasting growth in the relevant a population, namely the population that is becoming older, that will have to seek more hospital treatment. Like no other company, we are well set up to meet with deal with the regulatory changes and to react to these changes. So apart from the purely financial benefits brought to us by the Quirónsalud transaction, we've also learned an awful lot with regard to how progressive patient care can be when you're talking about collaborating between ambulatory care and hospital care. We are continuing to learn from them, and I am very, very confident with regard to the future of our hospital business, even here in Germany. We've also engaged in a structural change last year. We deliberately wanted to focus Helios on the acute care business, and the so-called post-acute care, that is, rehab and nursing business, has been transferred to Fresenius Vamed. And if you take a look at the growth rates for the past year, then you should always keep that in the back of your minds. This transfer of this inpatient rehabilitation business took place as of the 1st of July 2018, and since that time, Fresenius Vamed is our competence center for the post-acute care. On the other hand, we'd like to encourage our colleagues at Helios to do even more to focus on their acute care hospital, be it with regard to their inpatients as well as to their outpatients, and then also to focus on their international expansions. Like all other business segments, Vamed has developed very, very positively. There were a whole range of growth initiatives that were undertaken by having rounded off their product portfolio. And one small part that is frequently ignored is our business with spas at Vamed. Here we were able to add a new project, and you can see it here at the bottom right-hand corner. This is the first new health resort that is located in the Steiermark in Austria. We now have a total of 9 health resorts or spas throughout Austria. So, an investment year for 2019. As you can see, I believe that in addition to my statements, we are doing this from a position of strength. We are well equipped to do so. We have the best prerequisites, and we also have the capital power to continue to grow dynamically in the future. This is not something that is going to run all by itself. We have to work on this. We invested a considerable amount in 2018, and in 2019 we want to increase our expenditure. And here are just a couple of examples. You've already heard about next stage acquisition of Fresenius Medical Care. Reese also spoke about the expansion of home dialysis, in particular in China. And at Fresenius Kabi, I've already said that we want to continue to make investments in our product portfolio with regard to our liquid generics. We had a record number of new approvals in 2018, and we are targeting a similar number of approvals for 2019. At the same time, we have also once again increase the number of applications submitted to FDA for their approval. We definitely have a well-filled pipeline. And in addition to our biosimilars and in addition to our large European markets, we have also focused on we're going to be focusing on the launch of Idacio. And I've already mentioned that how much we are expending in order to ensure a bigger intermesh with our own companies. But there's a whole series of other initiatives, be it more effective coverage of the field of occupational medicine, or be it telemedicine, or centralized telephone hotline that we wish to launch in order to centrally issue appointments. These are all the measures that we have started and that will help us to generate more growth in the midterm and the long term. Many different digital initiatives, particularly related to the subject of hospitalization, with an innovation center in Berlin. And if we're talking about more efficiency, then in addition to what I've already mentioned, we will also be increasing the number of staff at our hospitals here in Germany. We're planning to fill an additional 1,200 vacancies in order to ensure the care of our patients and thus improve this care as well. In Spain, at Quirónsalud, we're going to be continuing to build new hospitals. We have a number of renovation projects that are also important to us. We have a big project for a proton therapy center in Madrid, which is on track and well within its investments budget, and where we hope that we'll see particular growth in our patient numbers. And so you can see a whole number of different initiatives that we have taken, where you can also recognize that not all of them will pay off immediately or in the short term. Some of them will simply take some time. And we're talking about encouraging you to think beyond the first quarter and to share Fresenius' somewhat longer-term view of the future. So, the financial outlook for 2019 takes all of this into consideration. We are continuing to see a healthy growth in sales of between 3 and 6%. And the way we provided some guidance on this in December, we do not see any considerable growth in net income, approximately 0%. Why have we chosen this terminology here? Because within the management board, we have the slight hope that we will be able to avoid a minus sign in front of the figures at the end of the year. So, with regard to our midterm targets, we had announced in December that organic growth would be somewhere to small to mid-single digits, and this is now being translated into +4 to +7% for annual sales growth. But we added that we do expect to engage in smaller and mid-sized acquisitions, and thus that might allow us perhaps an additional 1% of growth. In December, we said that with regard to our earnings growth, we do see a slight growth higher, that would be our sales growth. And you're seeing that the figures are now plus 5% to plus 9%. And again, we're also expecting perhaps an additional percent from any small to mid-sized acquisitions that we might and will be engaging in. We are investing a lot of money. In addition to that, we are very open to new acquisitions. Even at this point in time, we're not working on any major projects and tend to be focusing more on our homework. But we're also working on a continuous review of our own portfolio, which we've undertaken at Fresenius Kabi, for example. And one of the projects there is that we want to expand our business related to blood infusion technology, and we're going to be taking that out of the division of medical devices, and we're going to create a separate division for this. We simply ascertained that the points of contacts on the customer side are different than in our other Fresenius Kabi business. In particular, we're talking about infusion technology. This can be done much more easily with our, if you have a division with clinical solutions, infusion solutions and clinical nutritions, but we're expecting some improvements here because we also hope to see more sales growth. And with regard to our transfusion technology, that is growing continuously, and it also has a very interesting profitability. And this is something where we now wish to review our strategic options. One of our strategic options could also be to combine this business with an adjacent business at Fresenius Medical Care, the apheresis business. There are other forms of joint ventures that are conceivable, and we are taking a look at this process, but it is an open-ended process. I've also mentioned that we're continuously reviewing the portfolio of our hospitals. We have no concrete plans, but I do not wish to rule out the possibility that sometime during the course of this year, or maybe with respect to 2020, we might wish to thin out our services portfolio in some of the hospitals, or perhaps even part from the one or the other hospital. As far as Fresenius Medical Care is concerned, the focus is going to be more on the acquisition of next stage. But in his statements, Reese has also already pointed out that we are thinking about subjecting a series of our clinics who have not been profitable for quite some time, that we're going to take a closer look at them. You can be assured that our portfolio is not engraved in stone here, that we always constantly have to review it due to its appropriateness and also in view of the long-term trends that we have observed. The long-term trends, and this will bring me to the end of my presentation, means the following. Overall, we tend to be very well equipped to meet the future and to benefit from the long-term trends that we see in the healthcare business. The demand for our products and services will continue to grow. We are seeing this and doing justice to this with our continuing investments in additional capacities, and which will then translate into high-quality products and to make them more affordable in the long range. In 2018, you saw that we once again benefited from our diversified corporate structure, particularly when we're talking about Fresenius Medical Care and Helios Germany. Even if not everything has gone according to our plans, then other business segments were able to compensate for this. And this diversified group structure and our global standing allows us to recognize certain trends very early and to react to them appropriately and to take compensatory measures and also give us the necessary stability overall. The breadth and the diversity of our business has always been a guarantee for our success, And this is something that we are going to continue to build on in the future. At the end of my presentation, I would like to briefly refer to what we've discussed within the group, namely to continue to intensify closer cooperation within the Fresenius group. There are a whole series of synergy projects that we're working on. We don't want to simply invent the wheel again. Just, for example, Medellin as an example here, the market entry in a newly built hospital through Quirónsalud, we're going to be opening a dialysis station, and there are a whole series of examples that I could present to you in many regions where we're working even more closely. But Helios and Vamed have definitely already intensified their cooperation in the hospital business in Europe, and that is where we see an enormous potential. And this is something that we want to continue to reinforce and support. Why? Because this is good for our patients. And everything that is good for our patients is in the foreground for us. If our patients are doing better, then we know that our colleagues will be doing better, and also our shareholders will be doing better. And so caring for our patients is our highest maxim, our highest principle. And at the very end, I would like to say a few words about my dear colleague, Mr. Brosnan, Mike. Has really been with the company for a long time. He's made some enormously important contributions at Fresenius Medical Care. He's worked very, very hard with a high degree of skill and competency. I have an enormous amount of respect for him, but I also have respect for his decision. I wish him, on behalf of the supervisory board, all the best for the next part of his life. In view of his mentality and his commitment, I am perfectly confident that for as long as he is here with Fresenius Medical Care, he will do everything possible, his utmost, to continue to contribute to our success and I wish him all the best and a lot of fun in a hopefully very successful 2019. Mike, thank you very much. Vielen Dank.